He had a dream, but it wasn't just about peace. It was about justice, equality, and shaking the foundations of a segregated America. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't just a civil rights leader. He was a revolutionary voice of nonviolent resistance. Born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia, MLK grew up in the Deep South, surrounded by the realities of Jim Crow laws, segregation, and inequality. Raised in a family of Baptist preachers, young Martin was taught early that faith, education, and compassion were powerful tools, but that change would take courage. King entered Morehouse College at the astonishing age of 15, showing intellectual maturity far beyond his years. There, he was mentored by theologians and professors who would shape his future ideology. He originally had no intention of becoming a minister, but that changed as he began to understand the power of the pulpit in the Black community. He later earned a divinity degree from Crozer Theological Seminary and then a PhD in systematic theology from Boston University. While studying in Boston, he encountered ideas that deeply influenced his thinking, especially the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, whose commitment to nonviolent civil disobedience would become the cornerstone of King's own approach to activism. But MLK wasn't just an academic. He was keenly aware that change didn't happen in books, it happened in communities, on the ground, and often in the streets. In 1955, King's life and the nation changed forever. A seamstress named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. Her quiet act of defiance sparked a movement. King, 26 at the time and relatively unknown, was chosen to lead the Montgomery bus boycott, a campaign that lasted 381 days. The boycott wasn't just about buses, it was about dignity. Thousands of Black citizens walked to work, rain or shine. They organized carpools, endured harassment, lost jobs, and were threatened daily. King's home was even bombed, but he refused to back down. He preached nonviolence, echoing Gandhi's teachings. Eventually, the Supreme Court ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional. It was a major victory, and King emerged as the face of a new civil rights movement. In 1957, King co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC. Its mission, to harness the moral and spiritual authority of Black churches to fight for civil rights through nonviolent protest. With the SCLC, King crisscrossed the South, organizing marches and voter registration drives. But nonviolence didn't mean passivity. It meant strategy, discipline, and relentless courage. Protesters were trained to withstand insults, beatings, and arrests without fighting back. These weren't just symbolic acts, no, they were calculated moves designed to expose the cruelty of segregation to the entire country and force change through public pressure. One of the most pivotal battles came in 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama, a city known for its brutal enforcement of segregation. King and the SCLC launched a campaign of nonviolent protest there, which met with fierce resistance. Peaceful marchers were attacked with police dogs and fire hoses. The images shocked the nation. King was arrested and placed in solitary confinement, where he wrote the Letter from Birmingham Jail, a passionate, handwritten defense of civil disobedience. In it, he responded to critics who called his actions untimely and unwise. He wrote, "Justice too long delayed is justice denied," and reminded the world that moral law sometimes required breaking unjust laws. Later that year, King helped organize the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, one of the largest political rallies in American history. On August 28, 1963, over 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial, demanding civil and economic rights. It was here that King delivered his most iconic address, the "I Have a Dream" speech. Though only part of the speech was written, King began to improvise, painting a vision of a future free of racism and hate. His words, "I have a dream that one day," have echoed through history as a universal call for justice. The speech electrified the nation and solidified King as a global figure for human rights. In 1964, King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, becoming the youngest person at the time to receive the honor. That same year, the Civil Rights Act was passed, followed by the Voting Rights Act in 1965, two legislative pillars of the civil rights era. But as his influence grew, so did the backlash. Many white Americans supported civil rights in theory, but resisted changes in their neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces. Meanwhile, younger activists in the movement, like those in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, began to grow impatient with nonviolence, turning toward more radical strategies. King, while still respected, began facing criticism from both sides. As the 1960s progressed, King expanded his focus beyond civil rights. He began addressing issues of economic inequality, housing, education, and the Vietnam War. He believed the fight for racial justice could not be separated from the fight for economic justice. In his words, "What good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger?" In 1968, he launched the Poor People's Campaign, aiming to bring thousands of people, Black, white, Latino, Native American, from across the country to march on Washington and demand economic reforms. It was an ambitious, multiracial coalition that reflected King's growing belief in solidarity across race and class lines. But King wouldn't live to see it through. On April 4th, 1968, while in Memphis, Tennessee, supporting striking black sanitation workers, King was assassinated on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel by a sniper's bullet. He was just 39 years old. His death sparked riots in over 100 U.S. cities and left a nation reeling. But his message and his mission lived on. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just challenge laws, he challenged the moral conscience of a nation. His philosophy of nonviolence, his courage in the face of hatred, and his belief in the power of love to overcome oppression changed the course of American history. King once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But it doesn't bend on its own. It bends because people, like Dr. King, have the courage to stand up, speak out, and pull it forward, no matter the cost."